Good afternoon. Welcome to our webinar. Now, I'm Amy Siegel, and I'm the Vice President here at ASA, and I'm joined by Tina Weissman.
And I'm your support specialist. Nice to have everybody here today.
Yeah. We always say we want to start on time and end on time, so we're going to go ahead and get into this. We'll shut off our cameras and jump right in. Okay, so a little bit about your GoToWebinar panel if you are still getting used to this. There's an orange arrow at the top, and you can click on that to minimize your control panel and get it out of the way so you can see your screen. If you click it again, it'll maximize it so you have your controls. If you have a question at any time, there's a little raise hand icon. You can see that the hand with the green arrow. If you click on that, we'll keep an eye on that and answer your questions. You can also, if you prefer, you can just type a question to one of us and we'll answer those as we get them. We'll just send you an answer back. But we could also unmute your microphone and bring a discussion to the whole group if need be. So if you have any questions about those, just let us know.
Alrighty, so here comes January and here comes data collection. Today we're going to do a little bit of review of the vision to action process. Point positions, going to be busy this month, especially achievement data and root cause data point persons. And I think you might as well say all hands on deck because I think everybody will have something to do. Last month, you set up your organizational structure by creating a steering team and committing to the point positions. So if you haven't already sent that to me, be sure and do it ASAP. I would really like to have that so I have contact information. This month, you're going to collect current data that can be used to set goals in March and analyze root causes in April, because this can be time consuming. And the first time around, it is. We'll be honest with you. We want you to jump on this as soon as possible, but we're also going to give you quite a bit of time to complete the data collection before you need it. And so that gives you a little bit of time to hunt around if you need to, or get any questions answered I need. Here you see the point positions responsible for the work this month. The people in the achievement data and the root cause data point positions are responsible for making sure that this work gets done. But remember, you don't have to do it alone. You are a team, and so it's important to pitch in as needed. So you can see that the achievement data person will collect and enter different types of achievement data into the online system. And a lot of times, the collecting part is the part that doesn't hurt to help and pitch in. And then the root cause data, you'll be coordinating the surveys. And here again, that's a great time that council people can help do the community, and the student body person can help work the students. And so everybody can work together. And then that person will also complete self-studies. And that's just another instance of where it may be some combined information because not everyone has all the answers in the building as far as all these things that we ask for, Indiana rules and regulations, and the different Title I items and things such as that. So feel free to go out and ask those who would have those answers. And so then that pretty much leaves that. And then the intervention people, if you can dig in and help, that would be great.
All right, so a big part of today's webinar is going to be about the achievement data. We're going to go over the definition, sources of data, how to do the data entry, and then we're going to look at decisions that your steering team will need to make. So first off, achievement data tells the degree to which students are learning. It's typically expressed as the percent of students meeting a specified benchmark. And there are 3 types of data. We have state data, that's ISTEP, graduation rate, we'll talk about that in more detail, school data, and additional testing, which is optional. So when we look at state data, we are mostly looking at ISTEP. And most of this is entered by ASE, though there are a few things that have to be entered by the school because we don't have access to that data. And we'll get into that in just a moment. But also the graduation rate. And so we take that from DOE's website and we just drop it into your online report.
The state data that's entered by the steering team is going to be the ISTEP standards mastery. And just as Amy said, we auto-populate everything that we can from the state, but these items are not on the Compass page anywhere, and they're not anywhere for us to be found. And we are finding that more than likely it's because those are files that are sent to the individual schools and to the districts. And so they really don't appear anywhere else. So you will be responsible for finding out what the overall total of each of those grade levels and in accordance with the ISTEP standards mastery. If you have any questions about that, feel free to call me and I can give you some more information on where people do find those if you're having trouble. But more than likely, you already have that information right with you. We also ask for school data, and these items will be entered by the steering team. And there again, you see the ISTEP standards mastery. This would be for, looks like a 6 through 12 school here. It's going to include promotion rates, mastery grades, curriculum completion, and in addition to the ISTEP standards mastery. So when we talk about promotion rate, it's just that. The number of kids that were promoted at grade level. Now, Amy, correct me if I'm wrong, but we're still looking at spring 2018. Is that correct?
Yes, the data that you'll be, because it's your most recent complete data set, you're looking at 2017-18. We also have given you charts for 2016-17 if you'd like to go back a year so that you can have trend data. And if you want us to give you charts for years before that, we certainly can do it. And we're just at least 1 year so that you'll have data to make decisions with. And then we're also giving you your 2018-19 charts because some charts ask for first semester data, and if you wanted to go ahead and start getting that in, you certainly can. We just like to make that available, but the only one that we're really requiring will be the 2017-2018 data.
And along those lines, I know I've spoken to more than one school. You may not have been to school last year, so you're not going to have data. So what we would suggest you do is, even though you don't have any formal data, if there's any way that you can kind of get a bead through the kids' records that are feeding into your school and different things, try to find some sort of benchmark. Or if all else fails, then you can always go with first semester, because you've already had those kids in your building for a semester. So talk to the teachers and kind of get some benchmark information there. Even though it may not show up, you may choose to do some optional charts, which we'll get to here in just a little bit. But you really have to have somewhere to start. I wouldn't want to be jabbing around in the dark, and I don't think any of you would either. So figure it for your own individual situation, and then just go from there. Once again, if you have any questions, feel free, call me, email me, and we'll troubleshoot that a little bit and figure out what to do. Promotion rate we talked about, that's pretty much a straightforward thing. Mastery grades, you will see we ask for those at each grade level. And when we talk about mastery grades, we're not talking about mastery as far as the I-STEP standards mastery. We're talking about mastery grades at grade level. So for example, with this group, 6 through 12, you're going to see mastery grades at 6th grade and then on down through there. Because we talk about core forwarded progress, we talk about different grades there, mastery grades of students enrolled in selected core 40 courses. This will be something that you determine as a steering team. What is mastery? And it comes down to, it can be somewhat of past practices in your building. It can go along with your grading scale and how you consider mastery. The one thing that we always encourage schools is don't make it crazy high, but don't make it crazy low. And I always kind of use the gold standard that if I knew 80% about everything in the world, I'd be in pretty good shape, at least as a benchmark. So a lot of people will choose 80, 85%, or if that is the what you would consider a B in your building, that may be what you want to consider. But there again, everybody's different anymore. It's not like it used to be where it was just kind of straightforward. So if you want to get creative on this, that's fine. But the main thing you need to figure out is what is mastery, and then stay consistent with that so that it goes all the way through grade levels as the same level of mastery. You will, when you click into this at different grade levels, and Amy will show you this after a while, you'll see that it breaks it down into 4 subject areas. So at 6th grade, you're going to see English, math, science, and social studies. There again, one thing that you want to do is disaggregate as much as you can. So if you can disaggregate your different ethnic groups out, your males, females, your free and reduced, paid lunches, your special ed, your general ed, if you've got the numbers to disaggregate those kids to where it looks, it's a legal document and it has at least 10 per subgroup or 30 overall, then be sure to disaggregate, because that's going to come in so handy later, because you really need to put a microscope on that and really pick out specific kids that really are missing out and getting the help. And then the third thing is curriculum completion. And you see there, we talk about high school math. We talk about the core 40 classes. We talk about high school credit in middle school, such as Algebra 1, things such as that. All that's important because you want to keep checking on the progress of the kids and not let time lapse and then wonder why something's not happening. And 9 times out of 10, when there's a lack of consistency in the progress, that's what's going on. So we really hit this hard, and we hope that you'll see that the work will be well worth it. Okay, and then the other thing is any additional testing that you want to do, and this is entered also by the steering team, and these are optional items. Here is a group that looks like they're K through 6, and so they give several different kinds of tests and different things such as that. So in this case, they're doing Acuity, DIBELS, NAEP, and a reading vocab quiz. I've seen, let's see, NWEA, iRead. You're going to have something that is kind of your gold standard that you like. If you want to put it on here, you can make those charts. And like I said, Amy, I'm sure will tell you later when we look at the online system, which I think is next.
It is next.
All right.
So let me switch over to our online system. And the first thing I want to show you when we're on our process page, and this is the main page that you're going to use as you're working in the online system, we're going to look at last month at December. And I just want to notice we've got everything checked off here, and all of our submissions, the items that have an icon in the submit column, all of those have met criteria. So if you all are looking in your online system, you want to make sure that you have done all those December tasks. It's really important to work in order. And so get December done. If you have anything that needs revision or something that hasn't been submitted yet, make sure that those things are being submitted for review as soon as possible so that you can move on to January and start collecting data. So looking at our process, the very first thing we're doing is participating in our steering team webinar, doing it now. There's an introduction. This video will be here in step 3 as soon as we have a chance to post that. That'll probably be tomorrow morning. Then you're going to have the information icon for conducting your steering team meeting. That's going to go to the manual page. And I just want to point out that there's a data collection introduction that was linked in your process page as well. The slides for this presentation will be here also. And then there's a mastery grade help sheet. And that is something that you should print out and use in your steering team discussion. And going back to the process page. So then we have your steering team discussion summary. And then in step 6, this is where we get started with our achievement data. So let's have a look. When we come into the Enter Edit icon for achievement data, it lists our required charts. You'll notice at the top, the year is 2017-2018. If I wanted to go back to an earlier year, I would just change that. Or if I wanted to drop in semester in data for 2018-19, I can do that as well. We'll stay on 2017-18 for now. So to enter data, I'm going to click on my first chart, Mastery Grades for first grade. And so you'll see there's some text at the top that gives you some explanation. And then we have what's been filled in for this chart so far. So it just gives me an idea, you know, if I've already got some data in here, what that data is. And then I click on the Enter Edit button and come down here. I haven't entered information about my criteria or local mastery grade. So we'll say that we set that at 80%. And oh, in yours, I'm sorry about this. This looks a little different because we dropped in data automatically for this school, so it's not letting me edit because I didn't enter the data in the first place. But that's just a little thing because this is a demonstration school. So if I were completing this chart, I could say Save Changes, Entry is complete. And when I come back to my list, I can click on Select a different chart. Then that's how the check marks appear. So for this school, we've already entered quite a bit of data. I'm going to switch over to 2018-19 and just see. Yeah, we entered data for that year too. So this is going to look a little different than what you see. You'll be able to go in and you'll see text boxes where I currently don't have text boxes, and you'll be able to enter your data. If you have not completed your data entry for this particular chart, you're going to want to click Save Changes, Complete Chart Later. But if you've added everything you can add, click Save Changes, Entry is complete. So you'll notice most of our charts are very standard, where we start with all students, and then we have the number in the student group, and then the number at proficiency, and then our system will calculate the percentage from that. And then we do that for each disaggregation group. And as Tina was saying, we really want you to disaggregate as much data as possible. Hopefully your school's data system where you store grade information, hopefully that is set up to give you disaggregation like this. If it isn't, I know Tina, when her school was doing this, I believe that they had a big project where they went through student records to disaggregate as much as they possibly could, so that they could be able to target student groups and see which groups weren't doing as well as other groups. We do, for student confidentiality, we don't record if the student group is fewer than 10. We're not going to calculate your percentage for that because, and actually we advise you, unless your school is very, very small and you really just have to, or you wouldn't be able to look at any student groups. We have worked with schools that are so small that there are not 10 females and 10 males in each grade level. So, if you're in that position, go ahead and do what you need to do. But just remember, we do want to protect student confidentiality as much as we can. But still, disaggregation is important so that we can target our interventions down the road, so that we can really hone in those SMART goals that we'll set in March. And we can't do that if we don't have good data. So that's my soapbox on data. And going back to our chart list, so we have our required charts, and then we're going to look. I want to open one of the ISTEP standards mastery charts. These work a little differently. The same thing though, I get an overview of my chart so I can see what I'm being asked to enter. I click on the enter edit. And then on this one, I'm again putting in, we don't disaggregate on the mastery of standards, though I know that some of our schools where they see that they're having groups that are consistently not doing well on ISTEP overall, they'll come in and look at where are those groups having trouble in their mastery of standards. And you can add charts for that. And we're going to go over how to do those optional charts. But we're actually not going to have you disaggregate by each mastery of standards for ISTEP. So again, we're putting in our total. So if we had 50 students at 4th grade take the test, and then the number that met mastery, we'll say that was 40. And since I'm not completing my chart, I'm going to save and say complete chart later. And it lets me know that my chart has been updated. Go back to select a different chart. And now you'll see that this one does not have a check mark, and that's because I saved it in the way that I did. You have any questions, Tina? Any hands up?
No, we don't.
Okay. So let's go back to our process page. Once you have all of those required data charts completed, you can go ahead and submit that for review. And you just do that in the normal way. Click submit, select your name, oops, my name, and click the box and submit. And then go back to the process page. And now that has been submitted for review. So in step 7, we're looking at optional achievement data charts. And we just let you be in control of that completely. So in this case, our demo school, we have lots of optional data charts. And these are charts that schools have created. And I'm going to walk you through how to create a new chart. Okay, so our chart title will say test chart, our student group, all students. Well, actually, most of these are grade level, so we'll say 7th graders. Our benchmark passing test, our data source, test report, and if we had any notes, and these might be things where you want to make a note to yourself about where you got this data or when this data typically arrives. These can be helpful down the road, or it could be notes that you would want your community council, or I'm sorry, your school improvement council next year to be able to see those notes. They might not be as well versed if you wanted to say, this is a standardized test our school uses to measure whatever. Just whatever notes you think might be helpful as they're looking at it. And once we have all this filled in, we save and continue. So now we're looking at, the system is going to ask, what data do you have and will you enter into the chart? So we're looking at, do you have the number of students who reached the benchmark? And in this case, we'll automatically calculate your percentage for you, or were you given a percentage of students and then you'll need to calculate the number. So let me show you, if this is a, oops, let me go back one. I thought we had an example here, but we don't. So it's a simple question, really. Try not to overthink this one. Some reports give you percentages and some reports give you numbers. If your report gives you numbers, you're going to select numbers. If your report gives you percentages, you'll select percentages. So most of them give you numbers, so we're going to click on numbers. And now, again, we have another choice. What type of chart do we want to create? We call these a top chart, where the criteria, which might be the test or a course or a standard, are at the top of the chart. And I can show you an example of this. So this is our, we have our, in this case, our benchmark is that they were promoted. And then a side chart puts our standard down the side. So it just depends on, you know, a top chart is going to be disaggregated, a side chart is not. So I think that most of the ones that get created in our system are top charts. So we'll go ahead with that as we're working on it. And then again, we have another choice in step 4. Will the number of students being evaluated be the same or different for each criteria? So for example, if you've got a test that you give 3 times a year, you might want to have different student numbers because the number of students taking the test could be different every time it was given. Or if we're really just looking at one point in time, we only give this test one time, then we would probably be looking at the same student number. I'm going to go ahead and do different student numbers. Oh, well, here we can look at examples. So yeah, so we have our total students, and then we'll have the number that met the criteria for each criteria. And then on the different student numbers, there'll be the total number of students and then the number that met criteria for each one of these. Okay, so we're going to do, Tina, do you have a preference on which one of these we do? Same
Not
student?
really.
Okay, we'll do the same student number.
Yeah, that's probably a good idea.
Okay, so and another choice you get to make, I mentioned before that you can have, that usually these charts include the disaggregation. We try to disaggregate everything we can get because it really gives us more information. So we will say test math. I guess in this example, our test has these 4 subject areas, just like a lot of our state testing. And I'm going to save and it gives me a preview down here so I can see I've got my total number of students, I've got past math, past reading, past science, past social studies. It updates your preview automatically. And I'm going to save and continue. And this gives me a chance to edit anything before I continue. So if I decided I really should have used title case, I can change that, and I can do the rest of them as well. And so now I look, and the thing about these, there really isn't an opportunity to edit the setup of a chart before it's created. So, or I'm sorry, you can't edit it after it's created. So it's really important to look at this and make sure, yes, this is what we want. You can delete these very easily and start over, but we really try to give you a chance to give it one last good look over and make sure it's what you want. So, and then down at the bottom, there's a year selector. We will be entering data for this chart from, and then I can select a year. I'm going to say 2017-18 forward, and that way I can drop in my data from last year, and then I'm going to create my chart. Okay, and now I have, so if I had a batch of charts to make, I've got a link at the top that asks if I want to create another chart, if I want to return to the list of charts, or if I want to go ahead and enter the data for this chart. So I'm going to go ahead and return to the list of charts because I want to look at this, and the list is going to give me my SIT required first and then my school created. And here is my test chart down here. If I decide that I don't want this anymore, at any time I can click the delete icon and delete that off of there. Okay. Are there any questions about anything we've done so far?
Seeing none.
Okay, Tina, is there anything you'd like me to go over? Did I miss anything in there, or would it be helpful to?
No, I think it's all covered. Like I said,
okay.
Always, any question, a lot of times questions come later, especially when you're hands-on. So
Right.
We can always talk about it then if anybody has any questions.
So back on the process page, once I have my achievement data optional, my step 7, if I'm not submitting any optional achievement data, I don't need to submit this item. That's right, isn't it, Tina? We don't, if there's no optional data, we don't submit it.
I have them go ahead and submit it, because if you don't, you're gonna scare yourselves later on, because you're gonna see that one submit that's empty.
Right.
So what I will do is I always say it meets criteria, see comments, or I'll say meets criteria. But then in the comment box, I always put a capital NA for not applicable.
Okay.
And then that way we know.
That makes sense. So we'll go ahead and submit this for review. And go back to the process page and see that both of our data submissions have been made. Okay, so that is it for entering achievement data. And like Tina said, give her a call anytime you're having trouble or any questions, and she'll get you lined out. If there is another issue that comes up, she'll get me involved and we'll fix whatever needs to be fixed. All right, so about that steering team discussion, looking at achievement data, we want to make sure that you make the decisions. You need to decide what is our mastery grade for each of those mastery grade charts. We need to make sure that we've decided if we're entering any optional data and what that data is. We need to know who is going to collect our achievement data, and we also need to decide who is going to enter the achievement data online. And again, as we said earlier, the achievement data point person is responsible for making sure all of this gets done, but it's up to the steering team as a whole to work together to accomplish it. So, it could be that your achievement data point person takes this and runs with it. That would be very unusual. Most of the time, it's a group effort, and you'll support that person however they need to be supported. Make sure that when you have this discussion and make these decisions, that you put the decisions you made into your discussion summary, and Tina will be looking at that.
So now we move on from achievement data to root cause data, and we're going to give you the definition and sources, survey tips, data entry, and steering team decisions. So a whole lot in a little time. First of all, we go to the definition. And this is, Amy will be laughing now, because this is always one of my most favorite parts of the whole process. And it's the part that always gets left out, because so many times we look at data and then we say, well, let's fix it with this. But we never check to see why that data is not moving like it should. And so this is the part that makes you put on the brakes and really start taking things apart and figuring out why that things are not working as they should and why the kids aren't reaching their achievement goals as they should. So, first of all, we're going to talk about the surveys. And there again, Amy will show you here in a minute all about the surveys. But what we ask is that you're very diligent with giving these surveys. Try to get at least 95% participation from your students. If you don't pick and choose, you make sure that all voices are heard, and so that 95% of the kids, at least, you can get 100, that's fantastic, but at least 95% of them take the survey. The same holds true for the teachers. We need to get at least 95% of the teachers in there having a voice, because there again, we want everyone to have a say in this. With parents, excuse me, we need at least 30, but a lot of people sometimes will have like a parents' night or a PTA meeting, and this will be the main activity. And so you can get just scads. And then Amy's also going to tell you some neat little things that we can do online and with their phones and all this and that and everything else, which will really pop those numbers up. And then community, which is probably about the hardest thing to do, according to a lot of people, make it easy. With communities, you want at least 30 as well. Always remember that wherever you have a group of people together, you can get their attention long enough to take a survey, because they're doing it for the good of the school and the good of the kids. And so if there is any kind of service group organization that meets, like a Ruritan or Kiwanis, Optimist Club, whatever club there is, PTO, PTA, whatever it is, then you can go out and you can give the codes, which Amy will show you here in a minute. It's not a cumbersome thing to do. It's a very easy thing to do. We make it very light on our end. And so it has a great amount of ease in using this. And remember, any community building, libraries, whatever, or give it at church, put it in a church bulletin, and then ask the community to take those surveys. So in addition to the surveys, you'll also be doing self-studies. And these come in short answer questions sets. And then they also come as yes or no. And most of the yes or no's come from Title I. So you'll be clicking yes or no in accordance with what your building is doing at the present time. As we always tell kids on any kind of test, don't talk about what you'd like to happen. Talk about what is actually happening at the time. We're not going to sit here and shake our head and tisk anything. We just want you to be honest with yourselves and honest with each other and get that good picture of your building. And then a lot of the self-studies are also determined by SIP uses, which you clicked on from the beginning. And so in accordance with Indiana rules and regulations, or Title I school-wide, or Title I TAS, that's going to determine what questions need to be answered in the self-studies.
So talking about survey tips, we're going to go through in a little bit how to set up the surveys, but there are things that schools have done to make sure that they reach those numbers, and we'll go through those. So for students, as Tina said, we're requiring that you survey at least 95% of your student body. And schools have accomplished this in a variety of ways. For schools that have given all of their students email, and a lot of students are coming home with Chromebooks, the schools will email the students in each grade level their survey code and the survey web address. When you do this, if you go this route, you want to make sure that you send the student a deadline, let them know when they have to have it done by, and send reminders as that deadline approaches. We've also had schools distribute their student survey codes and the survey web address to homeroom teachers, and then give the survey in class, or give it to them so that they can take that home. The taking it home part is a little, I find it iffy because we don't know that every student has access to technology. I will say that our survey can be taken on any internet-enabled device with a browser. So if students have phones, if they have tablets, if they have Chromebooks, desktop computers, any of those will work. So they can take that anytime on any device. And sometimes we see schools ask all teachers to give the survey on a specific day, specific week. You basically assign them their time to do that. And especially when you're having to allocate computer lab resources, if you're not doing one-to-one technology, that can be a good way to go to get everybody done. With teachers, again, we're asking for at least 95% of your teachers. And, you know, again, this is one of those things where your teachers give you an important perspective about what goes on in their classrooms and what they see with the students. So some of our schools have asked teachers to bring a laptop, tablet, or smartphone to a staff meeting, and then they just set aside part of that meeting for everyone to take the survey. Usually at the end of the meeting, so as people finish the survey, they can go ahead and leave. We also see that schools will send an email with the teacher survey code and the survey web address to all teachers. Again, I would give the deadline and some reminders to let them, to make sure that they get that accomplished. A few of our schools have attached the teacher survey code and the survey web address to a candy bar and put those in teachers' mailboxes, so they have something to sweeten the pot a little bit and munch on while they do the survey. So again, it's one of those whatever it takes, whatever works best for your school. Parents can be more difficult because these are the people who are not in your building and a little less under your control. So we really do need you to get at least 30 parent surveys for statistical significance, but that is a bare minimum. More surveys equals better data. So really go after those parents. You need to see their viewpoint as well. So you want to include the parent survey code and survey web address in any communication to all parents. You can give parents a ticket at a ball game that has the parent survey code and a survey web address. Ask all parents to take the survey on their smartphone during halftime. That's one way to get it done. You can also open the computer lab during any event that involves parents and ask the parents to survey. Partner with your public library and you know, have them put up a sign over one of the computers at the library saying, you know, Sample Elementary School, parents come take the survey here. And that way, you know, any parents who are in the library might not have access to technology at home would be able to take it at the library. So, you know, be creative with this and talk about it. It'll take more than one kind of communication. If you have really good parent participation on your social media, that might be another way. Put out that code and the web address in that way, and parents are already online when they get that. But make sure you're going after lots of different kinds of parents because you don't want just the parents who show up to PTA meetings or PTO meetings. You want the parents who don't show up because they'll offer you a perspective that the other parents don't have. And like Tina said, community is the hardest to get. That's what we hear consistently from our schools, but they are worth it. And again, minimum of 30 surveys for statistical significance, but more surveys equals better data. So really come up with a plan to go after your community members. And I would consider a multi-pronged approach to get your numbers up. We've had people go to their local Chamber of Commerce to have their members survey during the chamber meeting. The same thing at service clubs, faith-based organizations, any kind of gathering of community members in your school community. We're looking for people here who don't have students in the building. You might have a door-to-door campaign to ask local businesses to survey, see if the PTA or student council could help with this. This could be a good service project that benefits your school. We've also had local businesses distribute the survey code in the web address to employees and their customers or clients. When I was on a steering team, we actually put that in the newspaper and asked people to get in touch with us about that. Our newspaper was very supportive. I'm trying to think of other ideas. Again, the library is a good place. Any place where you can get people together to pull out their smartphones or where they have access to technology, ask them to take that survey. And again, when you pitch it as this is something that's good for our school, this is something that'll help us make good decisions for our school, people will show up. So give that a go. If you have any creative ideas, please share those with us. If you need creative ideas, talk to Tina. She talks to schools all the time and hopefully, can do what I call cross-pollination and share some of those good ideas with you.
One other thing that I was thinking of while Amy was telling you about the parents and community, it never fails that we'll have a question about, okay, we have 2 parents, but we're going to get too many parents and we're not going to get enough community members. Well, most of us wear more than one hat. So don't take the survey twice. But if one of, if the mom and dad want to take, one of them take it as a parent, and then the other one's involved in the community in some facet of the community as a business person, service club person, whatever, then take it as the community. Because as I said, wear different hats. So you can take it from different points of view. And sometimes, that's going to give you some good information too. So don't feel like just because you have a child in the building that you both have to take it as parents, especially in smaller communities where you're everybody does double and triple and sometimes quadruple duty. So, just some common sense on that, but don't double dip on it as far as take it twice, but feel free to split your votes on that one.
Yeah, or you might even ask while you're handing out the codes to parents, give them the community code as well and ask them to share that with grandparents and aunts and uncles and maybe, family members who don't have students in the building, or at least not right now, but maybe they used to, or, maybe they just know about your school because they do have grandkids and nieces and nephews. Those people are in your community as well. So, but make sure it's people who are familiar with your school. We're not, trying to hunt people down who don't know anything about you. Though, if they're in your community and they don't know anything about you, this might be
an issue.
Pardon?
That could be an issue.
Yes, that could be an issue that we need to see in your survey data. So please, work on those numbers. If you have any meet any stumbling blocks trying to get to your minimums, get in touch with Tina and brainstorm. So now let's take a look at the online system with doing these surveys. I've mentioned survey codes. So let's look at when we get down to step 8, we are looking at conduct the root cause survey for students. I'm going to click on the information icon, and this gives me my codes. So for each grade level, I will mention, we haven't talked about this yet, for kindergarten, first grade, and second grade, we do not expect those young students to take the survey online. We start with grade 3 for online surveys, and here are our codes for the kindergarten, first grade, and second grade. You click on each, oh, that's a preview, sorry. There is a tally sheet. And then down here, sorry, here's the tally sheet under where the survey code is. So this is our kindergarten survey. I print this out and I'll hand that to our kindergarten teachers to give the survey, and their instructions here for the teachers to follow. And those teachers hand those back, and we click on for K through 2, we're going to enter the tallies, and that looks like this. So we add up, if we have 3 kindergarten classes, we'll need to add up our 3 tally sheets and put those in here and then save when we're finished. And we'll do that for each grade level. For the online surveys for grades 3 and up, they'll need the code, and then they'll also need this survey site, asainstitute.org/survey. Let me show you what that looks like. I'm going to open that in a new tab. And here's the survey. So it gives a little information. They put the code in. Let me go over and copy a code so we can look at it. And go next. We ask a little demographic information, and students can always, if they prefer not to answer, they always have that option on the demographics. We hope that they'll answer those so that we have nice disaggregated data. And then the survey is just statements, and then they select agree, disagree, or not sure. And you can see we keep this nice and simple so that it will work on any internet device. And then when they're finished answering their, agreeing, disagreeing, or not sure for all questions, they save their responses and they get a thank you. And the parent and teacher and community surveys work exactly the same way. So that's from our info icon. So these info icons are very important. That's where you get your codes. Here's the teacher. And if you want to preview the questions, just click here and you get a list of all the teacher questions. Here's your code and there's the address. Same thing for parents and for community. I don't know if you've noticed this, but on the codes, student codes start with S, parent codes start with P, and teacher codes start with T. We do that to help you keep codes straight. So just a little tip there. So when we're looking at the back in step 8, the student survey, we click on the enter data icon if we have kindergarten, 1st and 2nd grade. And that's where we can come straight to the survey input without going to the info icon first. Just go straight to the edit enter. And then over here in the reports column, the information icon gives us the number of respondents. So we can see also if we want to look at all of our survey groups, I click on that, and now I can see my teachers, parents, and community also. So that gives us our number of respondents. We should know how many kindergartners, how many 1st graders, 2nd, and so forth that we have, so we can see if we're hitting those percentages and our parent, teacher, and community goals. So when all of the surveys are conducted, we'll submit each of those for review. We do have you submit them separately, just so if there's an issue with one of the surveys, not with the others, we can mark those as needs criteria and only mark a needs revision on the one that has an issue. And usually that's not enough community surveys. So, and then down at the bottom, we're going to look at, down at the bottom, starting with step 12, we start the root cause self-studies. So 8, 9, 10, and 11, those are your survey links or survey steps. And then starting in 12, we have our self-studies. So the first one is for ASA, and it's required for all schools. And then there's the SI2 root cause report. So we give you the report to review. And then in the remaining steps, we have, depending on our SIP uses, we might have additional, actually most all of you will have at least one additional. In step 17, we have the root causes self-study, and that covers the Indiana rules and regulations questions. If you are a Title I school, either school-wide or TAS, you might have another one here. So anything that is grayed out is just one that you don't have to do because of your SIP uses. And I will say it's a good idea to go to your SIP uses and make sure that's correct. So if it turns out that we are not a school-wide school, I can uncheck that, and then I won't have that section. I won't be expected to complete that section. So looking at the self-studies themselves, as we said, they are mostly short answer questions. We do give you the year that we're expecting your data to be from, because sometimes it's something that you'll need to think back to last year or look up information from last year. And other times we're looking at the current year. So just keep an eye on those. And it's important to answer honestly. You're really looking for complete and true data about your school. It's a really good idea to not do this, to just have one person doing this. It's usually, because you might need different perspectives. It's good to make sure that the whole steering team is looking at this and making sure that they agree that these things are true and complete, that we have a full accounting of what's going on in our school. Yeah, because that makes it useful if we're trying to just make everything look rosy because we think it'll impress someone. That's really not helpful when we're down the road. We're trying to make decisions and figure out why students aren't achieving. So just be as honest as you possibly can be so that you have good data to work with down the road. So you'll answer your questions, and if there's overlap, so for instance, these are questions that that are asked for both ASA and Title I school-wide. Since my school is a school-wide school, we just want to let you know who you're answering the questions for. So you put those in and just click on your Save button. It lets you know that your changes were saved, and you can click to go back to the Process tab. So we'll do that on the Indiana Rules and Regulations. That's our next self-study. Again, we're being asked a variety of questions. These are all things that are required by the state of Indiana, and you'll answer those and click Save again and go back to Process. So we just do that for each of the self-studies they require. Do we have any questions or hands up, Tina?
No, we don't.
Okay. We'll go back to our presentation. If any questions come up, please make sure you contact Tina. We try to make the questions as straightforward as we possibly can, but if there's room for interpretation and you're really not sure which way to go with it, give Tina a call and she'll help you out with that.
Okay, so now kind of wrapping this up, you're going to make some steering team decisions here. First of all, who's going to be responsible for surveying each group? So who's going to do the students? Remember, 95% at least. Who's going to do the teachers? Ditto on that. Who's going to do the parents? At least 30, and the community at least 30. So there again, divide and conquer. Who will answer the ASA question set? As you can see, that could be more than one person, depending upon, 9 times out of 10, the principal's going to know a lot of those answers. Counselors are going to know a lot of those answers. People who have been around the building are going to know those answers. And then who will answer any other question sets? Remember that the Indiana Rules and Regulations basically come straight from Indiana Code. So you've answered these in the past, so you can go ahead and look into those once again. Probably going to be a lot of heavy administrator input on this one, just because that person has a little bit more direct contact with those types of questions. Oh, and then also, just as an aside, include those decisions in this month's discussion summary, please. That would be good when you send that. All righty. And then to just kind of wrap it up and put a bow on it, don't forget 5-minute or 5-second rule. I'm here. Obviously, I'm not here 24/7, but I'm always checking email and I'm checking voicemail. And now that the holidays are kind of going to have a little lull in the holidays, there'll be a lot more work going on here. So don't feel like I'm not going to get back with you if I don't answer you right away. I may be away from my desk, but I can still check, and I'll try to get back with you as soon as I can with an email response. In fact, probably email is your best weapon of choice. Phone sometimes will get tied up with something else, and so just drop me an email. That would be my first suggestion, and then phone is a backup. So that pretty well takes care of it for here. Everything but telling you Happy New Year.
Thank you all so much for being here today, and we're just pleased as punch that you're all working with us.
Good luck and have a good month.